ripple effect of ESG, implications for the entire value chain.
Is this working? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this panel on ESG, the ripple effect of ESG. And what we're going to be looking at today specifically is the three pillars, the environmental, social, and governance, but we're going to tie them in directly to how they drive business objectives within,
Sorry for the presentation.
Thank you. Within the global gaming industry. So instead of taking a lot of time introducing my panelists, I'm going to let them each introduce themselves real quickly to you, and then we're going to jump right into the discussion. You want to go ahead, Glen?
Yeah, hi. My name's Glen Smith. I work with iGEN, the iGame Executives Network. I organise environmental cleanups and tree plantings for volunteers from our members, and I also work with sustainability around plastic recycling.
My name is Floris Assies. I've been since 2016 in the iGaming space, mainly as an affiliate, content marketing and SEO. And I founded BetterWorldCasinos, a platform that reviews gambling companies on their ESG performance.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Franklin. I'm a lawyer by profession, based in Malta and specialized in international taxation and international policy.
Great, thanks guys. So just real quick, like we've got up on the screen, the ESG Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive requires large companies meeting 2 out of 3 criteria that are listed to report on their measures relative to ESG. This expands the former Financial Reporting Directive and goes into effect next year as far as reporting on results from this year. So we're going to start with social. Under CSRD, companies must disclose their policies on diversity, human rights, labor standards, community relations. So the question to our 3 panelists, since so much of the historical CSR conversation revolves around harm minimization and responsible gambling, what else should companies be looking at with respect to fulfilling their CSRD social obligations? Floris, do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, sure. So the social element is, both on the stakeholders, the players, the employees, regulators, everybody involved. Where we can, I see it as 3 pillars. Basically, if we look at the employees, if you're involved in ESG, more and more employees are aware of it, that they want to work for a company that actually does good. So there is a chance to get your talent acquisition. I always like to use the example, there's a lot of vacancies in the iGaming industry where everybody is looking for the best talent. But if employees want to work for companies that actually do better, then you would better also take care of your ESG in order to attract that talent, because it's not only the money where a lot of people are now considering when they choose a job. That would be one example. Then, of course, there is the most obvious, responsible gambling. And I can give them all, but it's Glen. Let's hear you.
Well, one thing that is very clear to me when I'm working down in Malta is that there's quite a lot of disconnect between the iGaming industry and the local population. And one of the remits of iGEN is to try and make iGaming a more attractive career choice for the local population. And there's a bit of resistance to that because of the reputation of the industry. So within the primarily environmental work that I do, I have tried to bring volunteers from the iGaming industry together with activists, environmental activists, NGOs, volunteer groups from the local Maltese population. And it's been very successful over the last 3 years of getting people to interact with each other so they understand who they're dealing with, so that the iGaming industry maybe didn't have much connection with the Maltese people and wondered why maybe they were cleaning up the Maltese environment, and the Maltese who thought on their side that the iGaming industry was there just to generate money and they were not connected and engaged in Malta as a society. And one of the other things we do is that we identify Maltese employees within iGaming who are prepared to be ambassadors and talk about iGaming as a career choice to their families and immediate networks as well. So it's building connections between iGaming and the local community, and then getting them involved in CSR activities and initiatives.
So those are great points, but I'm going to kick this over to you, Franklin, because if we really delve into social obligation, there are so many different areas that tie directly into how a company operates. Do you want to give us some ideas, some of those key things companies should be looking at?
Yes, sure. So, in my opinion, when we talk about ESG, we should not be looking just as a reporting requirement. It's a culture which must be embedded from top down. Just same as any compliance requirements, compliance obligation. The management need to be the influencers of the company, of the organization, to instill a culture of ESG and environmental concern and environmental responsibility. I believe as well that there should be more, what companies should do is more training and awareness. So the three pillars of ESG, I mean, now they've become quite vogue and everyone knows what ESG stands for, but I still have doubts as to the real meaning. In the sense, I believe that with more training and more awareness within the organization, not just on a company level, but also individually, how can an individual impact in a better way the environmental concerns, there would be more effectiveness within the organization. And as well, employee involvement. So it's not just the decisions that the board and management takes with respect to ESG decisions, but also individual employee involvement and how to better implement the requirements emanating from ESG regulations and laws.
Great. We're going to move on to environmental. We're trying to cover a lot of important data in a very short amount of time. So again, under CSRD, reporting companies have to disclose both the risks and opportunities relative to climate change and environmental sustainability. This is a challenging one for so many companies within the online space because they don't necessarily have a large physical footprint. So the question to the panelists, within the gambling industry, even though land-based operators have reported on environmental issues for years, tying in with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, it's a little more difficult to do it from an online perspective. So what can online companies do, though, if we're looking at reporting on environmental impact and making a difference in the E-pillar? What are some of the things online companies can do? Glen?
Well, what I am working with on a daily basis is helping the members of iGEN specifically to improve their environmental sustainability footprint by getting engaged in activities, volunteer activities. Obviously, there's many other things that they can do around things like sustainable energy sourcing, things like that, but that's very difficult in a country like Malta where you have limited access to things like sustainable energy sources. You would think that Malta would have solar power and wind farms, but due to lack of space, there's not very much opportunity for that. But what I'm working with is getting volunteers from the iGaming communities themselves to go out and engage in the environment, removing plastic and other waste from the environment, and getting involved in tree planting and those kind of activities. Now, these are very low-hanging fruit. Any company can engage with this. We have 30 members within iGEN, and I would say typically on any of the major environmental events which I organise, we will have volunteers from maybe 15 companies coming, and we can mobilise far more people than maybe local organisations can for these kind of events. So we could typically have 100 volunteers coming out, and we get the obviously the press coverage for that, and it's just something that all the iGaming companies can quite simply get involved with. It doesn't require any change necessarily in their approach, but it's a very hands-on, low-hanging fruit for how they can improve their sustainability footprint.
Great. What do you think, Floris? Do you have any ideas?
No, it's hard to add anything to that. I think you've said it all. It's definitely less obvious, but the low-hanging fruit, in the sense that it doesn't immediately impact the product that you're trying to make. Whether you source your energy renewably, your video games will still run, or whether you choose a service provider where you host or where you get your traffic. If they cool with more sustainable sources, or if it's more integrated or more circular, then that's very easy, and it doesn't necessarily need to cost a lot more. Nowadays, with the new technology and innovation going on, we see that there is actually a lot of cost savings here, especially when consider that the carbon credits, if it would actually be implemented the way it was meant to, then there's a lot of money to be earned over there. The online-based, with land-based, it's very obvious that you have your traffic coming there, you have your waste, your food production from your hotels. These are all things that online obviously is not dealing with. But still, there's a lot to be done, but easily.
Yeah, just to add as well, sometimes we underestimate, I think, small actions which we can take. So, for example, implementing a remote working policy can actually have an environmental impact, because you're reducing the carbon footprint. You're not using your car to go to the office, for example. Another thing could be opening green data centers and collecting data to measure the carbon footprint of a particular organization. Having a more green spaces within the office, and more paperless, for example, policy. So all these small actions can lead, especially if you are a big organization of 1,000 more employees. Imagine instead of having 1,000 employees within the office, you have 500. That reduction of carbon emissions will surely have a good environmental impact on a local and international basis as well. So this is something that organizations need to understand, that they don't need to go big immediately. You can start with small steps, and slowly, through monitoring, you can enlarge your ESG policies and make them more effective.
If you don't mind. Oh, sorry.
I just want to do a little push for something that I'm working with. We talked about carbon credits and carbon footprints. We can also do a similar thing with plastic. About a year ago, I started working with a company which is doing plastic recycling, and they issue plastic credits which companies can use to offset their own plastic footprint. So it's something that, again, as a low-hanging fruit, is very simple to implement and very cost-effective, and something that which is admissible in ESG reporting. So plastic is my main focus. Carbon is a more difficult thing to deal with, but plastic is a lot simpler.
Just one last thing before we move to the next point. We're now talking about it being very segmented. We just discussed social, now we're discussing environment, and later we move on to the governments. But we must realize that all these things are interconnected, and one affects the others. So with the environmental topic, if a company chooses, like, okay, we're going to furnish our office with circular products, we're going to, for office events, we're going to use local producers that have local produce. So we're talking about environmental aspects that also have a social element, because you buy or purchase from local providers with local goods, etc. You give those companies a right to exist and help them make a profit and move on to the next year. So there's a lot of trickle-down effect in this sense.
That's actually a great jumping off point into governance, because governance really goes over all of the different aspects the company has in all of its business areas and its impact. So without really diving into what the governance requirements are from a reporting perspective, let's get right into the question. Can focusing on ESG, implementing initiatives like what you guys have addressed, can it help drive the bottom line in a positive way, not just as a negative additional cost for compliance? How can we actually reframe ESG as helping a company, the industry, be more sustainable, more profitable, more responsible? Who wants to go with that one first?
Yeah, sure, I can go. Yes, I mean, definitely. So one thing that we were discussing just before, it is the reputational impact of ESG. Having a company with effective ESG policies and procedures makes the company more attractive, not only to employees and to various stakeholders, but also to investors. It also improves employee retention as well, especially the Gen Z. They have a huge affinity towards the environment and other social aspects as well, but it attracts more employees, and I think an employee would be more satisfied in an organization which has environmental concerns at heart, at the core of its governance policy. So those are my two highlights when it comes to having businesses adding value through their ESG policies.
Yeah, me first. I always think governance should be first. It's governance and then environment and social, or social environment, because that's where all the decisions are made and where it comes down to the bottom line. Any decision you make in a company will affect the bottom line, and you need to see, okay, what are we willing to compromise and where are we willing to make an investment.
One of the things that iGEN works with is aggregating job vacancies from all of our members, and we have created a web portal where people can go in and apply for jobs. Now, the recruitment of new staff is cutthroat in the iGaming industry. Everybody wants the best candidates out there, and we are aware from statistics and research that up-and-coming candidates are placing huge demands on the kinds of companies they're prepared to work for. So it's not sufficient just to claim that you have an ESG strategy or you have a sustainability focus. You have to prove that. And the recruits are going to place a lot of focus on what you're actually doing physically, and that will help them decide where they're going to choose to go and work. And as you pointed out before, attracting investment money, if you don't have a proper sustainability focus and strategy, you are going to fail to get the kind of investment you want for your company to be able to expand. So seeing ESG as a cost is very blinkered, I think. ESG is an investment in your company's future from every aspect, I believe. Companies which don't have a sustainability focus will fail in the long run, and other companies that do will overtake them and take the lead. So, yeah.
Well, and also if you look at sustainability, there are multiple studies out there that show that the impact on global warming, increased plastic use, etc., has long-term increased costs in other areas. And so approaching ESG from a sustainability perspective, yes, you may have a cost associated with it, but when you look at the long-term cost of non-compliance, it's even larger, especially if you get into certain aspects, certainly within governance, where there are potential regulatory penalties or financial penalties for non-compliance. So it is part of being a responsible entity from that governance level. Governance really does tie into how you are not only operating your company, but your company's impact within the environment, the industry, the surrounding area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have reached out to all of the iGEN members and asked them where they are on their ESG journeys, whether they actually are CSRD's scope, or if they will soon be, what they're actually doing to implement ESG strategies internally. I would say 50% don't they haven't even started. They're still looking around to try and figure out what they need to do. There are a number that have employed ESG managers or ESG responsible people, and they are fumbling around to try and find out what their strategy should be and where their main areas of focus should be. Some of the larger companies obviously are more advanced. They do have ESG strategy and ESG managers in place, but they also struggle to get their ideas across internally within the organizations because it's not been implemented on an organizational level. It's still very much, I think, box ticking.
Any last quick comments from either of you?
So 15 seconds. No, I mean, my last comment would be just this latches on to what you were saying. It's not an added, as in, yes, there will be a cost for the reporting requirements, just like any other reporting, really and truly. But imagine the cost of non-compliance, and the long-term effects of that.
Okay. Thanks so much, guys. If any of you have questions, I encourage you to ask our three experts after the panel. Thanks so much.